College football imperialism, the game that takes this map down to just one final winner, is back on College Football 26, and I can't wait to see who ends up winning it all. I'm starting the year with all Power 4 teams plus Notre Dame and Washington State and Oregon State. I wouldn't leave you all out like some people would, but first, thank you to EA for allowing me to capture this footage on an early access build. Everything you see is work in progress and subject to change. So if you somehow don't know how this works, I'm gonna spin this team wheel to determine what college is gonna attack first. It's gonna be LSU. And then this arrow wheel is going to determine what direction they attack in, so they're going to be headed to the northeast. What that means is the Tigers are attacking Mississippi State in their home stadium for our first game, and the loser of it will be completely eliminated from imperialism. Now, if you had to take a wild guess, I think a lot of us know how this will probably go, but if you've never seen an imperialism before, some really wild stuff can happen. When it comes to Mississippi State, they've only been able to score 7 points in this game, but they've been able to get it down the field at the end. And if Blake Shapen gets him in the end zone, it's not over. They're going to need to do it pretty quick though. They're trying to conserve their last 2 timeouts. They go to their running back and he has nowhere to go. So it's looking like the Bulldogs are done for as LSU gets the pressure. It wasn't the biggest win in the world, but I'm sure the Tigers will take it, especially in a rivalry. And now the entire process should make a lot more sense. So whoever wins, they get to stay on. That's how you defend your territory. Where we will go until there is only one college left on this map. This is one of my favorite things to do every year, and I know it's only Power 4 plus a couple of other schools, but that's because I'm filming early access. I don't have as much time, and we'll get to the full imperialism soon. This is like a little baby one compared to the ones we'll do with all the teams compared to the ones I'm going to do with FCS schools. And I can already tell with the way this one's set up, there's going to be a lot of great matchups early on. What did I say? This one's coming down to the final minute, and TCU needs to drive down the entire field, score a touchdown to win this game. Are they going to be able to make that happen? Probably not, but we don't want to lose all faith. It's just not as likely as last year since the computer AI has gotten a little bit smarter. What I'm going to be interested to see in this video is if we can catch anybody pressing at an awful time. We had a 50-50 ball there, which with no one coming down with it is going to help Baylor get the win. So far, we've only seen teams go on the road and win their games. And so you have to wonder, when is that stadium pulse going to kick in and really rattle some of these teams going on the road? That's what I'm waiting for. We'll see who is up next to attack. It's going to be Ole Miss, which is going to keep the SEC pretty active early on, and they're headed towards Alabama. I was just looking at this area of the map. One of these two teams is going to be out extremely early on. If this was the full FBS imperialism, something like this happening would be a lot less likely. It normally just takes longer to get these matchups. That is so cool to see as well. I was just down in that tunnel the other day. As for this game though, I guess Austin Simmons and Ole Miss just didn't have what it took to win on the road. You can see the icons above their head. He's confused. And the Crimson Tide are going to cruise to an easy win, 28-12. That was honestly just a really tough draw for Ole Miss to have to face Alabama first. With them out of here, we've only lost a few teams so far. Maryland could be the next to go though. I don't want to speak too badly down on the Terrapins, but they're not the best team. But they are in a pretty fortunate position because with the arrow pointing this way, they're going to face Virginia. Now, if you had to ask me who I think is going to win the national championship this year, neither of these teams would even come into consideration. But the beautiful thing about imperialism is one of these two teams could win it all in this video. From the looks of it, Maryland is in a bit of trouble. With a minute left, they're trailing by 6, but they have the ball. If your team's going to make a comeback, preserving timeouts is a major thing they have to do. And we're going to see if they can get off this final snap. 2 seconds left, 1 second left. This is it. Maryland throws an interception, making reads like me. They're not going to be able to pull off this win against Virginia. And the Cavaliers have just survived, leaning on their defense, which is something we typically expect out of them. That was a solid, well-earned win from them. I'm impressed that they were able to close that one out. We're just taking Maryland off of the map. And who knows, maybe Virginia's lucky. They don't have to play again until like the top 10, and they make it super far. I know you all see who it just landed on, though. We're going to get some Arch Manning gameplay. And if you look at the map, there's not really anyone over here besides Texas Tech for him to target. The Red Raiders have been able to build together a solid team through the portal, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to defend their home field. I am having a pretty good time though watching all these unique intros, seeing what each of these schools has going on. But when it came to actually watching the Red Raiders play, there was a lot left to be desired. You can see Arch Manning's out there. He's taken a knee. And that's because Texas was able to hold them to just 10 points, winning 24-10. Arch Manning didn't even need to do that much for them to pull the this off. He threw for 300 yards, only 1 touchdown, but they were just the team that came out on top. And with that result, with that win, I have to assume that they're going to be the biggest team in the US. You could try to argue that Colorado or maybe even Minnesota has more territory than the Longhorns, but at the moment, I don't think they do. And all of that is most likely to change pretty soon. We're only 5 games into this. We're landing on Georgia Tech. And we saw last year the potential that Haynes King in that roster really has. Unfortunately for the Yellow Jackets, though, they're going to have to test that out immediately as they're going on the road to play Georgia. You all will see it eventually, or you've already seen it. I went on the road to play against the Bulldogs in my Road to Glory series, and I did not have a very good time. It looks like somehow, though, the Bulldogs are the team that's not having a good time today, as they're trailing by 4. I mean, they definitely just helped themselves by picking up that first down, but they still need to get into the end zone. And Kirby Smart is trying to leave as little time on the clock as possible. That throw from Gunnar Stockton, though, just isn't going to cut it. You can tell that this crowd is not happy. And here we go. Georgia has 2 plays to survive an Imperialism. They're taking all the time off. Now they've called a timeout. We saw that last year as well when these 2 teams played, though, especially in overtime. They'd come out in a formation, they'd call a timeout after seeing the look that they were getting, and they've got somebody in motion. What's Georgia drawing up here? They're floating it up into double coverage. This is it. Can Gunnar Stockton keep Georgia in this? He uses his legs, and he is in the end zone. Georgia Tech with another heartbreaking loss to the Bulldogs. I mean, I just don't think they're going to do anything with 4 seconds. Who would have thought that Gunnar Stockton was going to take off with his legs? Actually, I would have. But clearly, the Yellow Jackets were not prepared for it, and they're going to waste all of their time on the kickoff. They didn't even get off one final throw. This is how Georgia's going to survive. It was ballsy. It was risky, but it sure paid off that they were able to take all of that time with them as they ended it. For the time being, that's going to get them the entire state of Georgia, but there's a lot of good competition surrounding them. And we're about to head out to BYU, where I might need to adjust the depth chart. They're going to be facing off against the Buffaloes. We're going to see what Deion Sanders can do with this team that doesn't have Shedeur or Travis Hunter. And I'm going to be honest, without their quarterback, I don't know if the Cougars stand a chance. However, as we enter the final 76 seconds, it's all tied up at 17. Colorado has been driving down the field, so they're in a pretty good spot. They got Caden Salter at quarterback. He transferred from Liberty, and he's about to use his legs to run straight to the 1-yard line. Buffalo fans can get excited, but they're scoring a touchdown too soon. The Cougars are going up against some loud stadium pulse. Deion Sanders has really turned around this program. And if anything, I don't know why they're running with a minute left in this game. They just wasted a third of the time they have left on the clock. They're going to have to figure something out, and they're going for a huge shot that gets them to midfield, where they're going to use their final timeout. See, this is where things get really hard for them to manage correctly, though. I mean, that's not going to help their case if they want to win this game. And here we go. This is it. We saw Colorado against Baylor last year be able to send it to overtime off of a Hail Mary. BYU's not going to do that. They're going to throw an interception instead. And that's all the Buffaloes needed to survive. That's a great start for them, though. They have a lot of territory that they've expanded to, and there's a lot of states around them as well that they could end up claiming before playing other teams. See how it works if, like, let's say the arrow lands on Utah and they end up going up north. They'd get to claim this entire state of Idaho. I don't know why it's mixed in with Montana, though. I'm going to have to draw a line here. I am not going to look at a map when I do this, by the way, so if you say this doesn't look realistically accurate, you're probably right. I really don't know how I just noticed that, but here we go. Updated look at the entire United States. And we are just slowly working our way through some of these eliminations. Boston College just got landed on too. There has been a theme in all of these imperialisms where they make it to the end. And this is exactly why. Whenever they get landed on, they get to claim these states that they are next to. I am sure, especially with less teams in the Northeast, they're going to be in this one for a while as well. But do you know who never gets that luxury? Vanderbilt. They are in the middle of it all, and even though they don't have Memphis to their side in this video, they're attacking south against Alabama. And unless they somehow manage to pull off this upset again, they're going to be eliminated. I've seen Diego Pavia talking pretty crazy recently, but he's confident, and he's had a chance to put that on display in this game. His team's down by 8. The issue is there's only 24 seconds left, so they have a long way to go. And let's see what he can do with this next play. A check down's just not gonna cut it. He's thrown 2 interceptions in this game, and those are the ones you're gonna think about when you're laying there in bed late at night. They didn't even get off another snap, so Alabama's defense has helped them survive. They might not have Nick Saban anymore, but they've already been tested twice, and they're showing no signs of weakness. We're only a few games into this, though. It'll be interesting to see if they're able to keep it up. And for my West Virginia fans, fans, no matter where this is pointing, how confident are you that you're going to get the win? This was an interesting landing spot because we start from the center of the logo, and if you go just a little bit upwards, it's going to hit Cincinnati, but it was close to Kentucky too. My favorite team could have been on the line, but instead we're getting a Big 12 battle. And unfortunately, if you root for the Bearcats, they didn't show up until the fourth quarter. They're trying to pull off one of these last-second comebacks, but even if they get this 4th and 3, they have a long way to go. They need to immediately score a touchdown, then get the onside kick. I just don't see it happening. The only reason that we even watch games that are at this point still is because there have been 1 or 2 occurrences where the comeback has happened. But because they just got stopped at the 1-yard line, that's going to run off another 10 seconds. It's over. This is the final play of the game, if they even get the snap off, which they do, but they're going to have no time left to do anything else. The clock doesn't start running on a first down until they set the ball, so you could factor that in a little bit, but I just want to see a little bit more urgency there. Cincinnati, you've been eliminated from Imperialism. Seeing the Bearcats get eliminated always hurts me a little bit. I went to college like 10 minutes down the road from them, and I worked statistics at all their games the year they made it to the playoff, but we landed on Alabama again. That's the far more important thing. I guess in this one, they're just going to be coming hard. They're going to be attacking LSU at Death Valley very early on, and I'm pretty sure whoever's going to come out on top of this could basically be decided by a coin flip. Just like expected too, it was as tight as we were hoping. With a minute and a half left on the clock, the Tigers are trailing by 1 point, but Garrett Nussmeier has the ball in his hands. All he needs to do is get his team in field goal range. That is a solid start. If he takes a sack though, that would take a lot of time off of the clock, and I'm watching it closely. So far, they're down about 40 seconds. He's taken too much time to get this snap out. We'll see what he can do here, though. Another completion. It's short. You got to get out of bounds. You got to get out of bounds. So far, I'd say it's looking pretty good for LSU. Alabama's playing some softer coverage. They're letting them complete stuff underneath. They almost had that one too. Where's my guy Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. when you need him? I want to see him come out of nowhere and get a pick. They're currently getting the Tigers on a 3rd and 5 as time winds down. And LSU has no timeouts left, so they need to get this one to like the 40, immediately get up to the line, spike the ball, and then get off a field goal. The drop there, though, is going to hold them back. That was the win right there in their hands. Now they're faced with a 4th and 5, where you have to get out of bounds, or you could just send it down the sideline. Well, there you have it. Alabama has now been able to survive 3 games, so they've played the most of any other team. But for those of you that are very familiar with Imperialism, all of this expansion isn't necessarily the best thing in the world because it could come back to bite them. See, here's the thing. They've now expanded so much that a lot of other schools are touching them. Any of them could attack them at any moment, and there's always the chance for an upset. So that's why early on, you kind of just want to mind your own business. You only want to play a couple of times before we get to the top 10, and every single time you get into another game, it makes it harder to win it all. Arizona State's been picked. Even though they don't have to play 2, since they're going for a territory that is unclaimed, I can't say this is the best thing that could have happened to them. They've now exposed themselves to be attacked from a lot of other directions. And so literally sometimes it is just best if you don't get landed on for like the first half of this video, it's going to Louisville. As a Kentucky fan, I don't feel good about this. I don't want to get put out by the Cardinals. And there is just no way that Alabama is going to get landed on again. It goes straight down to their territory. We have never in Imperialism history seen a team have to play this much from the very start. And I feel like with that in mind, if a team's winning a lot of games as a reward for playing at home, they should get a night game. Normally, it's always during the middle of the day, but I feel like there needs to be a benefit for winning a lot of these matchups since there's a lot of downsides with all that exposure. Plus, I really just wanted to show off the night lights. Unfortunately, you don't get to experience this in every stadium from what I've seen so far. There's only some of them that have this, but they look sick. After someone scores a touchdown, the lights will flash on and off. And I don't want to just sit here and say that the entire reason Alabama was able to win this game was strictly because of that, but they dominated, winning 27-3. I think we just came up with a new bonus though. Every 3 games that you win, if you get to host against a team, you get to have a night game. I don't know, it just seems to actually provide an incentive for expansion, and the sample size is really small, so it might not always provide that much of an advantage, but they destroyed Louisville. EA claims that night games, rivalry games on the road are supposed to be more difficult than other road games this year, but that's a claim. We get to test it in this video with actual results. We are also headed down to the state of Florida for the first time, where Miami is going to the bounce house. The Hurricanes have gotten themselves a new starting quarterback with Carson back, and we're about to see if he's still putting that work in or if he's just having a great time down there in Miami. So far in this game, he's helped his team score 20 points, but UCF has a chance with 39 seconds left. They just made it 2nd and 2 with that completion, and it looks like they're going to go for a shot at the end zone into double coverage. Miami gets the pick. They have sealed it. They better be getting out the turnover chain if they still do that. You can sit there, be upset about the read, but you're the one that it threw it straight to them. And I'm not quite sure what the vision was there, but the Hurricanes are going to survive. So far, the bigger schools have come so close to getting knocked out, but it seems like no one can pull off the upset. But eventually it has got to happen, and Georgia has another chance to lose. This time, they're not going to have their home field advantage either. They're headed to the Northeast. And if this logo was actually on Athens, they wouldn't be playing South Carolina. They would have been playing Clemson. Let's not discredit the Gamecocks, though. This is still going to be a tougher matchup for them. And they've put the Bulldogs in an interesting spot. Minute 13 on the clock. Gunnar Stockton down by 1 point. He's going to have to lead his team into field goal range, escaping that pressure, which comes very quick. I got to be near Dylan Stewart at the cover shoot, and that was a massive guy. I mean, I don't know how you're supposed to stop him. Listen, it's no secret, even at 6'5", I'm not the tallest person in the world. I'm sitting there looking up to him like this. And this Georgia offensive line has had to deal with him all game, but the Bulldogs have just gotten into field goal range, and we'll see if they can get a spike off. Well, they clearly do not trust their kicker from this range because they're trying to pick up a few more yards. And there was no way for them to stop the clock, so South Carolina is going to pull it off. I mean, there's no guarantees that on the road the Bulldogs hit a field goal from there, but that's just how imperialism works. Sometimes the AI can work in your favor or against it. If there is one thing that's guaranteed across NCAA 14, college football 25, college football 26, imperialism is always guaranteed to bring chaos, and I hope we keep on getting more. Poor Pittsburgh, though, they're about to go on the road at Ohio State. And do we think the Panthers have it in them to pull off this upset? You want my honest answer? No. At some point, you just have to feel bad for Pittsburgh. They're losing so bad that they punted in the final 30 seconds. Like, it wasn't even close. They couldn't stop Jeremiah Smith. They also couldn't score. And it feels like the farther that we get into this imperialism, the more red schools are just surviving. We've seen Ohio State expand, Alabama expand, Georgia to then South Carolina expanding. And I want to see that Kentucky blue stretch across the map, but I know the odds of that happening are very low. As for Penn State, though, this could get some more blue into the mix. They're going to be going to the Northeast, and they could have played the Buckeyes, or they could get a team like Rutgers. The Scarlet Knights have like nothing going for them besides getting to play at home. But here's the thing, they've kept this game far more competitive than I think anybody could have predicted. I'm a little confused why they're calling a timeout, just because they're down by 5 and they're about to score on Penn State, so you want to run time off of the clock, but there it is. Ian Strong was making a strong play right there. He held onto the football through the contact. We'll see what Penn State can do, though. I mean, they've been set up to come back in this game now. All they had to do was get into field goal range. Are they going to be able to capitalize, though? Breaking a tackle. What a play. What I'm still curious about, though, is how they handle this final 35 seconds. I thought last year they did a good job with it. The computer might call a timeout a little prematurely, like with 13 seconds left instead of like 5, leaving a little bit of time left, but they would still make sure that they would get the game-winning field goal. Penn State's not even going to need it. I mean, Rutgers had all the hope in the world, then just had their defense completely decimated by Drew Aller. If they are going to come back, they are literally going to need a miracle here. And I don't know how their mascot can be this happy through all this pain. Here we go, though. Final play of the game. They're floating it up. Are they going to be able to come down with it? It looks like Penn State actually came with the catch. They almost could have gotten a good bounce there, though. It's just another instance where the bigger school is going to survive, but I guess with a stat line like this, you can't say they didn't deserve it. If you're going to upset a team like Penn State, you really cannot allow them to throw for 400 yards against you. They came close to doing it, but they couldn't close it out in the end. We're headed over to the West Coast for what I think is the first time. Besides Arizona State claiming some territory, I don't think anyone's played over there. And for California, they were better off not having the wheel land on them because they're going to have to take on the Ducks. Going into this matchup, of course, they're going to be the lower overall team. And there was not much to see in this matchup. It finished 34-8. It wasn't a performance that's going to get the people going. Cal let them do whatever they wanted, and they're going to be eliminated because of it. With recent developments to our map of the United States, I thought we should take a bigger look at it. Alabama has such a large territory. I think they're touching the most teams. And I'm going to be honest, at some point, they're probably going to lose. I would be shocked if they finished inside the top 10. We'll see what Iowa can do now, though. They're going to get to go to the South, and that's going to put them up against none other than Missouri. On paper, these teams are pretty evenly matched. And listen, I'm trying to take it lighter on Iowa's offense. This is actually going to be directed towards Missouri's offense, who have had one of the most disgusting performances I think I've ever seen. They have scored 6 field goals. They haven't scored a single touchdown. It has been enough, though, to put them in a great spot in the final 30 seconds as they have a 5-point lead. So even though Iowa scored the only touchdown of the game, it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to win this one. taking the sack, no timeouts left. That is going to steal it. You know, Missouri's going to be happy with that win. I just can't believe they never got into the end zone. They only scored field goals. You see so many random results, though, whenever you go through an imperialism like this. I think that's my favorite part about it. And you all know, for the long-term viewers, there have been some very, very wild winners in imperialism. I think even SMU might have themselves a title. I can't remember. We've done like 15 or 20. And this is honestly, from the middle of their logo, a very close one, but I think it just goes into Arkansas instead of Alabama. It's my video. I'm the judge. There is nothing you can do about it either if you think I'm wrong. I feel pretty confident that we've gotten the right matchup here, though. It's about time Alabama doesn't have to play. And you know what? The Razorbacks have put up a very, very successful showing here. They currently have a 7-point lead on SMU, who has Kevin Jennings injured. Apparently he got injured earlier on in this matchup, so that makes some sense. Or maybe he's just out for that last play because Tyler Van Dyke was in, but he must be dealing with something. This is absolutely the worst time to lose your starting quarterback. And I had no idea Tyler Van Dyke still had any bit of eligibility left, and he was at SMU as a backup. There's also a new mascot in the game. I would have remembered the Mustang if I saw him last year. Look at all that time in the pocket. SMU still feels like they have a pretty solid chance of coming back here, especially if you get towards the sideline. And I can't believe what we're witnessing. Tyler Van Dyke might be able to clutch up. There it is, though. The announcer's jinx. He takes a sack. They burn their final timeout. And it's looking like there is no way Kevin Jennings is going to make it out there onto the field. This is the final play of the game, theoretically. You got to send it to the end zone. You've got to send it, Tyler, which is what he does. We could have a catch here. Nah, it was triple coverage. Solid clamps by the Razorbacks there. They're going to pick up a lot of territory. And it might just mean more in the SEC. I'm pretty sure the only SEC teams that have gotten eliminated so far have been eliminated by other teams in their conference. Even though the geography of most conferences by now has just been completely scrambled. You'll most likely see in this video a lot of conference opponents playing other conference opponents. Or even better, when we get rivalries like this. So obviously, arrow is pointed down towards Miami, but if you have to go through this land to get there, then the Seminoles are going to have to face the Gators first. Those have always been the rules. I didn't make them, or I guess I did, but that's just what we're doing. Now, you're probably wondering, can Florida State redeem themselves from their 2-10 season? And the answer to that, at least whenever I use them in the first gameplay, or whenever we've been spectating this game, is no, because, whoa. Hang on, that was a crazy catch. I mean, it's not going to help them win or lose this game, but it was impressive. And the real result was DJ Lagway and the Gators taking down FSU. Listen, don't call me an SEC glazer. I know what's probably going to happen when Kentucky plays, but right now, they are on a roll. And we are closing in on one more game before we end up deciding our top 50. Michigan might not make the cut. They're going to have to beat somebody first. And the other team that might not make the cut, the team that got in without even being in a conference, is Notre Dame. This is going to be it for one of these two teams so early on. And I feel like we're setting up for our first overtime game. It's all tied at 28, and Notre Dame can't get it. I mean, they got a few yards there, but it's not enough to move the chains, so they've settled for their field goal, which they end up drilling. What this does is it puts the pressure on the Wolverines. We got Bryce Underwood under center. He's just going to hand it off. Justice Haynes had nowhere to go. And do the Wolverines realize the clock is ticking? I can see the play clock disappearing. You can see that the receivers are also very confusing. So I'm not sure they've completed it there. But even as a true freshman, Bryce Underwood is clearly composed under pressure. Time is still running off, though. I guess they didn't have any timeouts left, which means you've got to get out of bounds here. And because they didn't, that's going to be the end of this game. At the end of the day, Bryce Underwood threw 3 interceptions. So even if it looked like he was starting to figure it out, he's going to wish that he had a couple of those back. As that is the reason you're not going to see Michigan here inside the top 50. With this only being the Power 4 Imperialism and a few extra teams, though, making the top 50 is not too special. A lot of these programs, like Stanford, haven't even had to step onto the field yet. They are about to be tested, though, as they travel down to USC. And this might be an offense that the Trojans can actually stop, since it's only a 71 overall. Well, I wish I was here to say that this was a fun one to spectate at the end, but there was nothing. That's right, there was nothing to be excited about. Those eyes, though, were crazy. No wonder they won. The score wasn't popping up, but it was 33-13. Stanford scored a touchdown near the end, but they couldn't keep it competitive, they couldn't keep it entertaining, and they have immediately been taken off of this map. Sometimes we get some close matchups, sometimes we just get some very quick eliminations. And we've already seen Colorado take down BYU. Where are they headed next? It looks like to just get more territory. Nothing's down in New Mexico whenever we're doing these schools. That does make it a lot easier for programs like Texas, the Arizona schools, to have to play against them though. And USC was so close to having another matchup, but it's UCLA, who is actually headed up to take on the Trojans. Unlucky stuff here. If USC wants some home field advantage bonuses, they need to win a couple more. And we're actually getting our first overtime game. Neither one of these teams wanted to score at the end of regulation. UCLA is the ball first. And Nico Oyamaliva is facing some crazy stadium pulse, so he handed it off on third down. That was a pretty interesting play call. He doesn't seem happy. But if UCLA's defense can lock up, we could go to double OT. On the other side of things, USC, facing some pressure, is going to still get that throw out. And that was not great, so they've handed it off, which is going to get them a huge gain as they're going down the sideline. They went back to the run, but it didn't work as well, so they're going to drop back on second down and go to the 5. No, the 2. Fighting for those extra yards is worth it, but only if they're able to punch it in on 3rd and 1. Instead, they're going to lose a few. And do you know what that means? We're going to have another overtime period. This time, if these two teams can even crack the end zone, they'd be trading 2-point conversions. And on 3rd and 1, we saw what happened the last time they got in this position, but they've been able to answer. UCLA needs to start stepping up, but they just let them run it into the end zone out of Wildcat, so the Trojans are in a pretty good spot. Here's the real difference maker, though. What happens on this 2-point conversion? What have they drawn up? It looks like they're going to keep it, but it was the wrong decision. You know, I actually like to see that the computer AI can make the wrong choice. If they were just 100% correct every single time, which this is on Heisman, it would be like the same as them dotting you up going 35 for 37. It's not fun or realistic. If the Bruins want to stay alive in Imperialism, though, you can't be losing yards like that. It's going to be at the 5. And here we go. 3rd and goal. You can sense the pressure moving around in the pocket. Looks like they're just going to have to put it into the hands of a USC defender. That's how the Trojans are going to get to celebrate, by ringing the bell. They've been able to win another one. And if they can come away with one more win, we're going to see them having a great home field advantage the next time that they're attacked. It's kind of crazy that they're already all that's left for the entire state of California. It just happened so fast. Back to the wheel, though, where they are taking us to Illinois. The Fighting Illini are a little bit of a sleeper. They had a pretty good season last year, and they're going for taking over the entire state. Do they have what it takes? Well, I feel like Northwestern's not typically that good, and I'm gonna be honest, I know that this score already looks bad, but it was worse than this. Northwestern's been able to score 13 points in the 4th quarter. Without that, it would be 40-0. They're just stat padding so it doesn't look as terrible. That might make them feel a little bit better, but they're still being eliminated. And just like the Fighting Illini were hoping for, they get to take over their entire state. They had a really solid performance. They played well offensively, so they deserve it. We get to see what Mike Gundy can do, though. He's had some great years at Oklahoma State. He's also had years like last year. And I don't know what to expect out of their roster this coming season, but they're about to play at Texas. Of all the draws that you could get, this is one of the worst. And I don't know what you wanted them to do there. They just weren't a good enough team to keep up. This also creates a very interesting situation around the state of Texas. The Longhorns basically have all these teams surrounded. That is just most likely gonna lead to them playing in a lot of games. Like, they could have to face Houston. And it's not like Houston is gonna beat them, but there's always that chance. Instead, though, we got another team playing again, Alabama, as the arrow is pointed towards them. And it's just like Alabama and Texas are currently taking full control of the map. I'm actually just starting to feel bad for some of these other schools. We got the Alabama mascot in the stands celebrating with the fans. It's been over since halftime. And Ty Simpson came out with quite the performance. 4 touchdowns, no picks, almost 400 yards. Houston's barely Power 4. They just moved up recently. Now they're having to go on the road to face teams like the Crimson Tide. And I still think it's too early to call it, saying that there's not as many upsets in this game as college football 25. But I feel like at least so far, we're getting a lot less than we did last year. There's still plenty of time for that to change, though. I want to see more chaos. We got Michigan State attacking Notre Dame, and the Fighting Irish could single-handedly just take care of the entire state of Michigan. I might have misspoken a little bit too soon, though, because, oh, it's not popping up the score here. You all are about to see it. There was nothing to spectate. This is the wildest result we have seen so far. 45-3. Michigan State just went in on the road and did whatever they wanted to against the Irish. We're talking they threw the ball with 77% of their passes getting completed. We're talking they had to have run successfully too. And not only did they just pull off the upset, but I think Michigan State just gave us the largest blowout we've seen in this entire video. As we move forward with this Imperialism, they're definitely a team that we need to watch out for more than I was thinking. And I guess that's a perfect example of literally nobody is safe. All it takes is one bad performance. I'm pretty sure Washington's stuck in the corner, though. So no matter what, they were facing one of the two teams that are currently in the Pac-12. They ended up getting the Cougars, so we have the Apple Cup. I feel like this always happens. No matter what this map looks like, these two teams are playing. And Washington State is in a bad situation. You know, if you're punting down 24 in the final few seconds, you're not winning. That was the result that most of us were expecting, though. We're just going to go ahead and make the entire state purple. And headed back to the wheel, it is going to pull us back to Washington. To get landed on 2 times in a row is very impressive. And the Huskies are trying to take out the entire Pac-12. They want that entire corner to themselves, which would put them in a solid position. And the addition of Malik Murphy hasn't really helped the Beavers. They're going to get off one more play, but they're down by 17, so this is not going to win them the game. It's at least going to boost morale a little bit, but Washington just decided that they were going to go on a little bit of a run. And they might get left alone in that top corner for most of this imperialism. For whatever reason, though, the wheel is like attracted to the West Coast at the moment. And only one of these 2 teams is going to survive this next matchup. If USC can win this, the next time they're at home, they'd get to have a night game. But what we have just witnessed is another blowout result. Arizona State controlled this whole game. Kenny Dillingham has a really good handle on this current team, and we're starting to cruise through some of these matchups. All of that winning wasn't really great for the Trojans. It just put them in a worse position. If you're going to get yourself into a lot of matchups, you need to have the team that can back it up. And if you don't have the roster to back it up, you just want to hope that this wheel continues to avoid your program. Wisconsin might or might not have what they want to back it up. They're about to play to the West, and either them or Minnesota is going to be eliminated. Listen, if you're a Minnesota fan, I know I've never rebuilt you, but I'm hoping I can get to it on this game. And I mean this in the nicest way possible, but they really do need it. You can see who is hoisting up the axe right now. It is not the Gophers. They ended up losing this one 30-9. We're not going to see the score. But there was nothing Minnesota fans are going to want to see from this game besides a couple of field goals. Recently, teams haven't even been putting up a good fight to stay in imperialism. They're just laying down and letting themselves get knocked out. So I'm hoping this next matchup can set us back on the entertainment pathway, and it probably will. West Virginia's already been able to pull out one win. They're going to go south. And I thought Kentucky was about to be on the line, but they're facing Virginia Tech. With Enter Sandman in the game, it might give the Hokies that extra boost that they need. I am sure the EA has buffed their home field advantage because of it. But they have not been able to close this game out yet, as they just ran the speed option in the final minute. Jaheim White's rushed for over 100 yards. It makes sense why the Mountaineers would try to feed him this close to the end zone, but at some point you got to start slinging the rock, which they have done. That was worth burning their final timeout in this game. And Virginia Tech is so close to sending this one to overtime, but if they catch something in bounds and don't get in, it would have been over. It would have made it a lot harder for them to actually win. And I was hoping they'd go for the 2-point conversion, but instead we are headed to extra time. It looks like West Virginia is getting the ball first. Even with those stadium pulse effects going against them, they're easily going to run it in for 6. And all it took was 2 runs against the Hokies to score. The pressure has been applied, and Kyron Drones, with all the time in the world, is going to find a wide open receiver. This is going to get electric. Neither team wants to end it with a 2-point conversion, though. They're both playing pretty conservatively, and it seems like Virginia Tech's going to have a lot of success here, too. Terrion Stewart, pretty sure he transferred in over from Bowling Green. He was playing in the MAC. Now he's playing against some tougher defenses, not getting anything on the ground. Here we go, though. It's 3rd and 8. Virginia Tech is not going to want to settle for a field goal, and this means that we're going to have a chance for West Virginia to win. All they have to do is get less than 25 more yards, and they've been keeping it on the ground, setting up for a 3rd and 1, where I think we're just going to be trading 2-point conversions back and forth. This is where you get aggressive. They could have been aggressive earlier on as well. And instead, we've gotten to the point where they're trading 2-point conversions. Oh, that is a bailout right there. Virginia Tech does not deserve this if they win it here, but they can end it. Kyron Drones, corner the end zone. It's caught. That's how you actually make a catch and end a game. West Virginia should have held on to that last ball, but I guess the stadium pulse just got to them. You know, honestly, after that ending, I just feel bad for West Virginia fans. But you gotta have players that have their heads screwed on straight in those situations. It's another occurrence as well where the wheel is on Texas, and they're just gonna go for these schools one by one. First, it's the Aggies. With them having to play at Kyle Field, though, this is a great opportunity for someone to take them down. Interestingly enough, this is one of the tightest games we've seen, and it is not out of reach for the Aggies. All they have to do is score a touchdown. They just started off this drive with a completion. Marcel Reed's going to find another receiver helping him get near midfield, and they're building up some positive momentum again, finding an easy pass. I can see why Marcel Reed's thrown 0 interceptions in this game. He's been very smart with how he's managed holding on to the football, but he could have fumbled it right there. If you've noticed as well, looking on the scoreboard, that's going to do it for Texas A&M timeouts. So they better lock in. They better try and get out of bounds with most of these plays, because completions like this aren't going to be great. Fortunately, it was just enough for a first down. So not as much time is going to run off of the clock, but as you can see, they're down to 30 seconds by the time the snap gets off. Marcel Reed lobs it up to the end zone. 50-50 ball. It's caught. That is how you make a catch. Texas is in trouble. Arch Manning's going to have to respond. It's the transfer receiver from NC State making the grab. And Kevin Concepcion goes up for this one. It's the first time that we have seen an aggressive catch for a touchdown in this video, and it's an impressive one. I can only imagine what this stadium would sound like and be like if we were there. But here's the thing. They still have to be able to hang on. Texas has 3 timeouts, and they're just getting Arch a little bit more comfortable. He has no interceptions in this game, but the stadium pulse is loud. The play clock is also getting messed up. And if they're going to get into field goal range, you either need to go to the sideline quickly, or you need to take about a 30-yard shot down the field. They can't get out of bounds. That would have worked if they had more separation there, though. With no timeouts left, Arch is running. He's going to go to the 45, but they're not going to get up to the line to spike the ball. And did he just give a fist pump to the Texas A&M defender? That's an insane way to end the game. You can't say that Marcel Reed didn't deserve this win, though. And the map is just going to get redder with that result. Texas is basically taken over by the Aggies besides Baylor. But we're just coming up on the midway point of this imperialism, so they're far from winning. What did I say, though? Eventually, even the biggest programs just can't continue to consistently come out on top. And that's why for schools like Illinois, to be playing multiple games already is scary. Either them or Wisconsin is about to win their second match. But for the other team, they're going to be eliminated. You know, I said Illinois might be scary for a reason. They just dropped 38 points on the Badgers. It's their second blowout already. We have yet to see a team put up a competitive game against them. And other teams are probably hoping that that wheel stays far away from them. We almost went to Oregon, though. This is the second time Penn State's going to have to play. They're going to the Northeast again. I think they went there the first time when they played Rutgers. Now it's going to be Syracuse. You can kind of see how Boston College just gets left up there alone most of the time. No one touches them. And I believe this is the first game of this imperialism that's going to be inside a dome, so there's going to be no dynamic lighting changes. What ended up happening in this game, though, was the Orange have just struggled to score. They're losing the ball on 4th down. And Penn State closed this one out, winning just 21-6. To get that win, they really didn't have to do too much. They're going to wipe them off the map. And we're just one game away from being at the midway point of this imperialism. Nebraska has survived for quite a while, but they just got picked. And they're one of those teams in those fortunate positions where they just get to claim extra states. That'll keep them in this for a little bit longer, but eventually they have to win. And Duke is a team I think everybody should be terrified of. The reason for that is their veer and shoot playbook performs so well in Dynasty and Road to Glory sims from what I've seen. Unless it's tuned back a little bit, I can guarantee you're going to see a lot of them and other veer and shoot teams in the playoffs. And that's one of those things I don't really know how to feel about. It's felt like football games are always tied to team playbooks, and some can perform better than others. Like even back on NCAA Football 14, we saw Army and Navy run the table. NC State has not been managing the clock well in the final seconds, but they almost caught that jump ball. Duke committed a penalty, and this guy's flexing like a typical DB, even though he did that, so that's going to help out. And with 12 seconds left, all NC State can really hope to do down by 5 is get off a Hail Mary. They're fortunate they still had a timeout remaining, but I think they just swapped quarterbacks because theirs got hurt on that play, so we got the backup going to the sideline. Here we go. On 3rd and 15, this is it. There's nowhere for him to go. And Duke locked up there, but they didn't score that many points. We'll see if my theory remains true about them playing really well. They've been able to make it to the midway point in imperialism, but they've only played in one game. And if we zoom out, take a look at the entire map, is your favorite team still on here? Let me know in the comments, plus who you think's gonna win. Ooh, this is a good time to ask as well. Make sure you're subscribed. I never ask, and we're coming up on 500K. Arizona State is playing again though, and they're gonna have to take on rivals Arizona to get a little bit more territory. For all the land that they have, they've only had to win one game so far, and I think the Wildcats are in some trouble. As you can see, with about 30 seconds left, they're trying to conserve their 3 timeouts to get the ball back, but they're trailing by 14. And that means that they had to use one of those 3 timeouts after that last completion. They're not using another one here though, until they let it get down to 11 seconds left, and no Fafita goes to the end zone. That makes it 3rd and 7. They need to get in on this play. They still have hope. But if you're an Arizona fan clinging on to that last little bit of hope, you should probably just give it up. Here we go. Onside kick. It's scooped up. That is going to secure the win. And I was really hoping for a little bit more chaos there at the end, but instead, Sam Levitt gets to celebrate with the rivalry trophy. That just takes one more team out of the running to be our national champion for the first imperialism on College Football 26. And we're going to see where the wheel takes us next. It's going to be Iowa State. They had a pretty underrated season last year, actually. But now what they have to do is go on the road to play Missouri. The battle for the telephone is definitely a winnable game for them. It could go either way. And in a high-scoring battle, it looks like Missouri is going to to be the team that falls short on 4th down. They can't catch it. And that is going to do it. The Cyclones win this one by 13. Well, this is just going to add to the sea of red that we already have on this map. It feels like those teams are just winning. And so if you don't root for a team in red, you should probably be nervous, like Purdue has to be. Not only are they normally just not that good, but there are red teams around them. And instead of facing somebody like Indiana, who's actually gray on this map, they're going over to Illinois. This Fighting Illini team could win their 3rd game here and then get a night game the next time that they host somebody. And we have seen how they've been beating some of these other teams. We basically just gave them a layup. What do you want to see stat-wise? You want to see Luke Altmaier thrown for 4 touchdowns, no picks? Do you want to see that they rushed for almost 100 yards? Or do you want to see the final score was 45-17? They just handed us another matchup where there was nothing fun about it. We didn't see anything there that was worth spectating. And I love the way that things are shaping up. There's not too many teams on the map that haven't had to play in a game. I feel like with this Imperialism more than others, if you make it to the top 10, you probably deserve it. And the teams surrounding Oregon are probably not happy about this. Either the Ducks or Arizona State are about to be out. And if Arizona State just won one other matchup, they could have made this a night game. Now, I am just tracking all of that in my head, so if I do mess up for one of the teams eventually, I apologize. But no matter what happened here, the final score reflects that it just wasn't going to be a great matchup. Oregon won 31-3. I think you really just got a feel for Arizona State there. They did not put up an impressive performance. I was excited to see how far they could go, but instead, they've been knocked out too. And with the wheel going over to Wake Forest, a team that's not played yet, going up against another team that's not played yet, Clemson, we have some first-timers. There is clearly somebody here, though, that is most likely to win this one. You know, for a lot of these games, they've really just been blowouts recently. That one's going to finish 27-3. It was an ACC battle that wasn't close. Maybe in the next one, Wake Forest can go farther, but at least for now, they've gotten themselves eliminated. And as we look at our top 30, I can't come up with a favorite to win the Imperialism yet. A lot can still change. There are teams that haven't had to play yet, teams that haven't had to play for a while, and South Carolina's only win's been against Georgia so far. This time, it's either going to be them or Duke getting eliminated. And on paper, the Blue Devils are actually the higher overall. With about a minute left, though, the Blue Devils aren't in the best of spots. Lenore Sellers is able to hook up with one of his receivers. And that's getting them a lot closer to field goal range. They're only trailing by a point. He can't take a sack, though, so he's going to have to get out of there, and they're barely bringing him down. I feel like the Gamecocks have already gotten themselves into field goal range. We have to consider that they're on the road, though. And if they stay far away, there's always the chance that they could miss the kick. Now, after their last couple of plays, you can see that they're getting closer and closer. Lenoris is going to truck through a defender, and they just burned their final timeout. It's going to be interesting to see how they manage this final 30 seconds. They should be able to just kick. And I guess they're going to go for a pass still in the final seconds where they complete it. They're in the end zone, and they're going to escape. Now, there were a million ways that could have gone wrong, but they got the win. And honestly, after that, I don't even know what to say. I guess South Carolina fans should just be excited they're moving on. The Gamecocks have showed that they can persevere in the final seconds, and Alabama's about to go for another win. This time, they're looking to go on the road at Arkansas, and I've just lost count of how many games they've had to play. The wheel has not been in their favor. They're pretty clearly handling themselves very well, though, because this is another game that they're going to dominate in. And after forcing 3 interceptions on Taylor Green, they're going to take home the win. Even though they've already played in so many matchups, it just seems like it's going to be really hard for someone to beat them. And I don't think I realized how good Alabama was potentially going to be this year. Stay away from Kentucky. Well, there won't be any top 25. Basically guaranteed. And I actually really don't like this matchup. You know what though? Let's just put our faith behind a motivated Mark Stoops on the road. I think I would have rather just not had Kentucky in this in the first place though. This is a pretty gross result. We have only scored 3 points. Sometimes, if you got nothing positive to say, it's just better to not say anything at all. Just get me ready for basketball season. I'm ready for us to go crazy there. National champions, future 2026 national champions, you can book it. Sometimes you just have to accept that's how things are gonna be. No shot. Alabama's getting more play than any of these other schools. And it was only a matter of time before the Iron Bowl popped up. I'm pretty sure if they win this too, they're going to earn themselves another night game. As we head into the final minute, that's looking pretty likely as well. 56 seconds is all that Auburn has to drive down the field here. This is a solid start. But Jackson Arnold needs to get some deeper throws going, and this isn't going to cut it. They've had no choice but to use their final timeout. And that means from here on out that they're going to have to throw towards the sidelines. though he is not running towards the sideline. Coach is not going to be happy about that one. That's probably going to do it for Auburn unless they get really lucky. You can only break one tackle. There it is. The Iron Bowl goes to Alabama. They've gotten themselves another win. It's just never ending at this point. They're probably going to take over most of the U.S., but they have opened themselves to getting attacked from a lot of different directions still. I mean, that hasn't really made a difference so far in this video. Oklahoma hasn't had to do anything though, and they're pretty much surrounded by Texas A&M, but they actually just got the worst draw of all time because they are headed down to Alabama. You know what I said about Alabama winning another 3 games in a row as well. So let's just see it. Let's see how strong the home field advantage is, especially during a night game. Well, Alabama might have a real challenge here to close out. John Mateer's done a good job. And with a minute left, they're trailing by 4. They're in a position where all they need is a touchdown and they're coming close. The stadium pulse is going crazy. 4 plays for Oklahoma to get in. You can see their tight end. He don't know who he is, but it's good. It's all fine. They get the touchdown, putting the pressure back on the Crimson Tide. This is not an ideal situation for them. Ryan Williams drops it. And it just feels like the Sooners are actually going to be able to pull this one off. They're giving up shorter passes. Those aren't going to make the difference. You only got 28 seconds, 2 timeouts remaining, getting out of bounds, and needing a field goal. We'll see what happens here. They're floating it up into double coverage. Ty Simpson is intercepted, and the Sooners have put out Bama. We have been waiting for this moment, seeing them beat team after team. And what a run they just had, but it was eventually going to come to an end. Does this change much with the map? Not really. It's still mostly going to stay red, but it's a different team in control, and it opens up the door for other colleges to win. As for Boston College, I think we all know they're probably not playing. Except, I'm going to be honest, this is the one spot the arrow couldn't have pointed because it's hitting Penn State. Now they're unlucky because they're not in a spot where they can cruise anymore. And I'm sorry if you're rooting for the Eagles, but this game didn't go how you wanted. You can see the Nittany Lions just had a blast. That's exactly what I was expecting to happen though. And Boston College made it to the top 25, but no farther than that. We're now down to just 24 teams. Michigan State headed to the south. And after seeing what the Fighting Illini have done, I'd be terrified if I were them. Since I'm like 99% sure they've won 3 games, I have awarded them with a night game, but I'm not seeing a light show, so I think I was right about it only being certain schools. They still have a lot to get excited for though. Anytime you're playing at night, it's gonna look sick. And I'm interested to see how the Fighting Illini manage this final 45 seconds where they're close to winning. What they need to do is score a touchdown, not get 3. And on 3rd and 1, they've just handed it off. I can't believe it. They have settled for overtime. That makes a major difference, though the play action could have fooled Michigan State. Luke Altmaier needs to put that ball a little bit ahead of his receiver. That's why it wasn't completed. And I'm wondering how this has been the team that's been scoring like 40 a game. They just keep on running the ball, and this time it looks a little bit better. Quick little spin move, but they are still on a 3rd and 4, and the quick pass gets them 6. How is Aiden Childs going to respond back though? That's really all that matters. I really like that reach for it animation there, though they didn't get the first down, so it's 3rd and inches, play action. Illinois isn't getting in pressure. He's got the clean look. This is what they wanted, and they still catch it with 2 dudes on him as well. Yeah, you can stun on him. Of course, that touchdown is nice and all, but they still have to do stuff on this drive as well. That was obviously not ideal, but they only lost 4 yards in the process. And here we go, 3rd and 11. They're going to settle for their 3 unless he broke loose. All I can really say is I guess they thought that Illinois wouldn't expect the run. I mean, they did. They got their stop, but they're doing the same thing. I have a feeling this game is going to end the same way Virginia Tech West Virginia did, with us trading 2-point conversions in overtime, but they just avoided taking that sack. I feel like if Illinois was just willing to air it out, they'd be able to end this game now, which is what they've done. I called it on the money. I've been watching them run, lose a few yards at a time. They finally throw, and they're going to be able to beat Michigan State and continue their winning streak. I mean, it just had to happen at some point. You could smell it coming. You knew that eventually they would have been able to close it out. And big ups to them for doing this well in Imperialism so far. I don't think they've made it this long before. They're on a tear, and it might continue if the wheel ends up landing on them again. But instead, it went back to Virginia Tech, who's going to be headed to the east. What we've gotten ourselves here is a little bit of a rivalry game, and I'm all for this. One of these 2 teams is about to get a huge win. This matchup is how I learned that Chandler Morris from North Texas transferred to Virginia. And I also learned that the Hokies have been able to win this one pretty easily. They're throwing it up on 4th down. They're not getting it. So Virginia Tech's going to pick up another win. They've won the Commonwealth Cup, and I'm curious if they're going to celebrate with it or not. They've added a lot of new trophies. I guess that was not one of them. I'm not from Virginia though, so for all I know, there's not even an actual cup. It just sounds like there would be. That's probably one of my favorite parts about getting a new game though, is just trying to find all those little things that they've added. And Miami could have just stayed in their corner, not attacked anymore, and been perfectly safe. But what they've done is they've decided they're going for the state of Florida. The Hurricanes would have just been better off though not attacking because they're set to lose. Down by 10 points, minute 7 left on the clock. Carson Beck could help them move the chains here, but he's got a long way to go if they're going to find a way to come back in this game. And they have some hope. I'm telling you though, unlike last year, it's going to be hard to get down the field quick. I've been watching the defensive backs and they're playing very backed off. That was a problem last year that's not there this year. They're not pressing, so Florida played good defense and they won by 10. It is refreshing to watch teams that are up by 6, not just press in the final 15 seconds and give up a touchdown. I'm really glad that they listened on that one. I feel like I only mentioned it like 50 times last year. It saved me in some rebuilds too, but this year I won't have that luxury. As for the entire West Coast, neither team is safe because Oregon's decided they're trying to get out Washington. This is a massive game, especially because there's still a lot of open states that either one of these teams could claim in the West. And I'm pretty sure for both of these teams, if they're able to pull it off, it would be their 3rd win. Unfortunately, though, we find ourselves in a similar situation to this last game where it's a 10-point game with like no time left. And I know you all see the shadows on the field. We all know how I feel about that. Not much else to take away from that game, though. Just trying to show the map and the new territory that's been added pretty much is the entire thing. I mean, Oregon controls the whole West Coast right now. Penn State has the Northeast, though Ohio State's close. Florida has the Southeast. And I pointed all those teams out because if they're in those faraway places to reach that are harder to get to, they probably will make it to the top 10. Then you have teams like South Carolina who are looking to get another win. They're in a harder spot to have success. They're about to play Clemson. This is honestly a great matchup. I know they've added the trophy for this series as well. See, what I thought was going to happen in this game was we were going to get some competitive matchups, some exciting finishes, but you can see who's lifting the trophy. Once we reveal the score, South Carolina fans are going to wish we didn't look at the score. I think if you take a look at the quarterback stat lines, it's pretty obvious how it went. It was 43-10. Do you know what that means? Even though the Gamecocks had their moment against Georgia, they knocked out Georgia, they are not going to be in Imperialism any longer. And that area of the map looks so competitive. Oklahoma could have to play again. They do. There's just a lot of different directions this arrow could point, and it's up north. There is someone called Texas A&M in the way of them going anywhere else, so they're going to have to face the Aggies. And the SEC on SEC crime eliminating each other is never going to end, is it? I will say, though, Oklahoma is coming into this Imperialism hard, and no one's been able to stop them from coming into these games like this either. I mean, they just blew out Texas A&M. I didn't even realize that was where California transfer Jade Knott ended up. He transferred to Oklahoma, but he had 2 touchdowns in that game, and that's another huge difference maker. It's kind of funny that Baylor is just stuck in the middle of all of this. This is how the map of the U.S. is shaping up. And there's only 18 teams left. I mean, we're getting closer and closer to the end. Some of them, like Utah, still have not had to step on the field. And they just avoided another game too, but claiming this territory means Oregon's next door. They won't be able to just avoid playing forever. Colorado is another team we haven't seen in a bit. And with the arrow wheel, they are going to be headed to the west. Funny enough, they've gotten Utah, so Utah literally has to play anyway. It's just with how it worked out, they get the home field advantage instead of going on the road. Now, if you asked me to know anything about Utah football outside of the fact that Cam Rising will no longer be with them, I couldn't tell you. I know nothing. Are they going to be good? Are they going to be bad? I could not tell you. But so far, what I've been able to see is they've spent about a minute getting to midfield, trailing by 8, and they're trying to just get off a Hail Mary or something to go their way, except they ran, and that's going to end the game. Devin Dampier just took off. He had no timeouts left. And so that's how the rivalry is going to end. Colorado picks up another win. I kind of had a feeling it was going to go that way. We just haven't seen any miracle drives or Hail Marys go too well so far. But there is still time for it to happen, and they should be rarer occurrences. Poor Indiana. They probably thought they were just going to skate on by to the top 10 without having to play anybody, but now they're going to have to earn their place. They're about to go face off against Illinois. This is another team where I wasn't sure how depleted they'd be this year after last year's run, but they're an 85 overall with an 89 offense. And it showed in this game. The Fighting Illini only scored 17 points to the Hoosiers 33. It wasn't ever competitive. And it is weird to me that after all that Illinois did, they have just been knocked out. That's just how quickly things change in Imperialism though, especially at the end. And Clemson's looking to pick up a third win, which would help them with a home field advantage. With their territory over here, though, they're not just going for anybody. They're trying to take over what Oklahoma has. I've done it a few times. That arrow is pointing down to the red. And this is one of those matchups that could really determine who wins the entire thing. If you're an Oklahoma fan, though, I might have some bad news. You all have faced some injuries in this game. John Mateer is not out there on the field. You got the backup leading you down it. And I recognize the name Michael Hawkins Jr., just not very well. He's only been out there for about a drive or two, but when you're looking to have the game clutched up, send it to overtime, you need a touchdown. You're gonna want your star quarterback out there. Now, he did just get that throw off in time, but they had to take 10 seconds off of the clock because of an injury timeout needed. I think that was actually beneficial for Oklahoma. There's gonna be a flag here, though, and that's what I thought it was. It's coming back. Illegal man downfield penalty, never helpful, but they're at the 25. And how they handle these final 15 seconds are crucial. This is potentially a winner in Imperialism getting put out as they're going to stay in bounds. That's game. They were 1 yard away from a first down, which would have helped out a little bit, but they just had a long way to go, and I think their backup did a respectable job. That is a tough ask out of him in order for you to have success in that situation. And that whole southeast portion of the U.S. has changed so much. It went from Alabama to Oklahoma and now Clemson. The Tigers will also get a night game the next time somebody tries to attack them. And Colorado might be going for the entire West Coast right now. I was looking forward to it, but instead it is going to hit this open state. I have no idea what this is. This isn't Colorado. It's not Montana. And it took me a second to process. It's Wyoming. That's why it's empty. Normally, you got the big old Cowboys logo there. That's not there since this is Power 4 Imperialism. Both of the Kansas teams haven't played. I feel like that is just so fluky. How did that happen? Even worse for the Jayhawks. How did they be the team that has to draw a night game at Death Valley? Listen, there have been a couple moments where Kansas has looked a little better recently, but this could go very bad. And that's okay. I will enjoy rebuilding them on College Football 26, just like I've done on the last two games. There's a light show, though. I'm not sure if even Alabama had that. I can't remember. I just saw the lights flashing. But this is one of those intros that I just want to sit back, enjoy, watch them run down the hill, and see if we get any more light show action. I mean, if you're walking into a stadium like this, what could you possibly be thinking in your mind? I don't think it can be anything positive. We watch Kansas score the first 7 points and then never move the ball past midfield the rest of the game. I also have to say, after seeing the presentation on this game like the last week, getting used to it, I don't think I could go back to College Football 25. I don't think that's a crazy statement either. I mean, it objectively just looks better. It's like hard to believe that that wasn't there last year. I've gotten used to it. I've gotten used to walking out in Road to Glory and seeing the field from that perspective. You can't take that away from me now. What we might be able to take away, though, is Nebraska's territory, except they're not playing. I was going to say that they could lose here, but the arrow's pointing up this way, and now I have to determine which one of these two states that it's more likely to hit. I'm going to say Montana. We're just going to go with that. Back to the wheel, though. Is Nebraska ever going to have to play a game? The wheel clearly wants to see it. I mean, if this arrow points up north, you couldn't make it up, but it's pointed back to the same area. And there's only one person this can really hit. It's going to be Colorado. This rivalry is a pretty even matchup. We have the exact same defense. You can see the equal sign down there. And I thought it was going to be a tighter game than it currently is. Now, here's the thing. Colorado's being smart. They're kicking a field goal so they can get it within a possession. They saved their 3 timeouts, but they have to get the ball back. They went for the onside kick instead of kicking it deep. I guess it was worth the risk for them, but they still have to be able to stop the run, and they're not doing a good job of it. See, by this point, Nebraska's in field goal range. Colorado only has 2 timeouts. And the only way that Nebraska could mess this up is if they ended up fumbling or something. That just didn't happen, though. Instead, they ran out the rest of the clock. They're going to pick up the win. And this map can't stop changing. I mean, Nebraska just became the biggest territory in the entire U.S., but it is no guarantee that they're able to hold on to it, especially with teams like Indiana that are also playing well. They knocked out the Fighting Illini, who had an incredible run. And now it's kind of a close call, but I can say this hits Iowa State's territory. Both of these teams won a lot of games last year. As for who's going to be the better team in this game, though, I couldn't tell you. Guess who ended up dominating, though? You see the coach there. He's got glasses on as well. I didn't know they had glasses as a thing. I guess if you're going to put real coaches in the game, you don't really have a choice. For Iowa State, though, they've been knocked out. And it is all going to come down to these 12 teams. Honestly, if you told me this was going to be the top 12, of of course, there are some shocks, but I think it's pretty solid. Baylor, it doesn't matter where we spin this. It doesn't matter. They are the team that is trapped. There is nowhere to go but Death Valley. They've gotten to just float around, enjoy existing for a while. And I'll give them their credit. For a while, they came to play. It just all fell apart in the second half. Like, I thought we were about to get a competitive game, but then they just started collapsing. I mean, you saw the score by quarters. It looked promising for a second, but then reality sunk in. They got taken off the wheel, and Penn State gets drawn again. They have all that territory that Boston College has, but they're not headed in that direction. No, instead, they're going down to Virginia Tech. This is it right here. This is for a spot in the top 10. And I want you all to know there is hope for Virginia Tech, but that could have very easily been a pick. They have to move the ball 60 yards in half of a minute. But the problem is they only have 2 timeouts after taking one there. That's why it was crucial they got out of bounds there while moving the chains, but you can't do another check down. I mean, with this much time left, they're eventually going to call a timeout, probably around 11 seconds. That's when teams have been doing it. But what does that leave you with? 2 plays, 45 yards? It's a tough ask out of Kyron Drones, and he just made the easy decision that the game's going to end right here. You know, I'm impressed with the effort that the Hokies put up, but that's a heartbreaking way to lose, because you know a few other things go right in that game and you're moving on. You know, of all these teams that are left, I'm not seeing too many underdogs, and that's hard for me. I like having one that I can root for in the top 10. A lot of these bigger teams, though, have just been able to win and win and win, which is why a matchup like Penn State, Ohio State could actually shake things up. The question is going to be, can the Nittany Lions actually pull this off? I was simply hoping for an electric game, and we have gotten ourselves that exactly. Stadium pulse through the roof, number 3 in the country. You can see the play clock going in and out. Drew Aller, with all the time in the world back there, finds a receiver, but they had to use their final timeout. That's so costly. They still need to get another 35, 40 yards if they're going to tie this game up, send it to overtime. With 40 seconds left, I'm just not sure they're going to be able to do it. I mean, that was a hard hit there too, I think from Caleb Downs. And it is going to lead to Penn State getting the ball off 15 seconds later. But Edric Houston gets in, he gets the sack, and that might be it. Penn State's trying to get off another snap, but they don't. They lost track of time. And so there it is. Ohio State's defense helps them hold on at the end. Are we really about to see the team that just won the national championship, though, also get this imperialism? I don't want to see that. We always do these imperialisms because chaotic things happen. Maybe Clemson's about to add to the drama. They're going to be going to the East. And Bill Belichick thought he was going to escape with his North Carolina team. Outside of Kansas State, I think they're the last team on the map that has not touched the field once. And we have another game that is coming down to the wire. We have seen defense play a major factor in this imperialism so far, but North Carolina needs a field goal, and they still have a timeout left. I feel like they're going to be able to pull this off. Using the RPO, they're going to have to fight for the first. And it was marked as a 3rd and inches, but you can see Dabo Swinney over there on the sideline just in the ref's ear. He probably had a word to say or something there. And even though North Carolina just got to the 45-yard line, they had to use 2 timeouts to do that, so I have a feeling it's going to be hard for them to finish this one off. Great throw from Gio Lopez, though. He's going to need to aim towards the sideline so they can just stop the clock. That's what he's done. They step out, but I am afraid they're not in field goal range. You could send a kicker out and attempt one from 62, but you're better off just hitting a quick little out route and then getting out of bounds. The clock's not even going to stop because it was marked as a 3rd and inches. Once again, the clock got the best of North Carolina. Clemson is going to pick up another win. Now, this is nothing new to imperialism. We've seen Clemson get hot and go on some major runs. But what I'm wondering is, do they have what it takes to withstand 3 or 4 more attacks and take the whole thing home? That's where it's going to get really challenging for them. The wheel is going to avoid them here, though. And Kansas State, of all teams, finally has to play. The funniest part is, like I said, Clemson's going to have to withstand attacks because they're getting attacked. And we've seen the rest of the map. None of this is going to be easy. I'm pretty sure with a win here, though, they would earn themselves another night game. They're going to get it because they just won by 21 points. It's another one that's not a contest. Like, I need to know how much of the map is just Alabama and Clemson responsible for eliminating. How many teams? It's got to be like 15-20% of the lobby. They've been going crazy. Even worse, Clemson is going to have to play no matter what again. You see where Florida is. They are landlocked by the Tigers. This might be it for them, or it could just be where they continue to win. I sure am not opposed to getting to see stuff like this again, though. This looked insane. Even with the home crowd, the night game on their side, though, I'm going to be honest, I think it's over for Clemson. They have no timeouts left. 30 seconds remaining, and they just threw a pass in bounds. You can see all of those conference champions up there, but unless they somehow get like a 40-yard pass out of bounds on this play, Imperialism Champion is not something they're adding to the list. By the time that they were able to stop the clock with their timeouts and get the ball back against the Gators, there just wasn't enough time. Florida has gone into their house and done what feels like the impossible, especially in the fourth quarter. I can't believe it either. It was seeming like this day was never going to come, but that's going to leave us with these 6 programs. I'm starting to think that my bonus of having a night game isn't really helping these teams. That was how both Clemson and I think Alabama went out. And the teams that win cannot escape playing again. Indiana is going down to Florida's land. I think the Gators have won 3 as well. I'm giving them a night game whether they have or not. I am curious. I wanted to see what it looks like inside the swamp, and here we go. We're coming out of the tunnel. Indiana, are they in some trouble? They might be. Or Florida could have that big game against Clemson, and then they come out and don't play as well in this game. We do finally have an ending where it really feels like the other team could come back. 30 seconds has clearly not been enough for some of these offenses to get into field goal range, but I think about a minute and a half is. Indiana's on a 3rd and 4, though. They're facing the number 7 stadium pulse in the country, and they hit their slant. Fernando Mendoza. I'm guessing he just transferred in from California. I think that's where he was at before. Dude, I just can't keep track with the portal nowadays. But look at this game. They're getting close. This might be it for the Gators. Indiana's not running the football yet, though. And I can tell that Florida is panicking because they just took a timeout. I keep seeing the ability under Indiana's quarterback tear down, so that's been interesting to focus in on. Evidently, playing on the road's clearly not affecting him too much. He is taking it. And look at that read. He had to get that out, and he did, under pressure. Indiana might not kick a field goal. They might score a touchdown. I mean, the Gators are now out of timeouts. But if the Hoosiers decide to get in here, they are giving Florida a chance. DJ Lagway's got a large hill to climb up, but he's starting out strong. Except I just lied to you. That's not a strong start. They have no timeouts. That gets them like nothing. It's unfortunate too, but their defense just didn't hold up at the end when they needed them to. And so you can do the Gator Chomp one more time, but after taking down Clemson, Florida's out. They did a solid job, but Indiana is not done. And I can't even believe I have like the smallest of soft spots for Florida as a Kentucky fan now. It's just DJ Lagway was like the nicest guy ever when I met him down at the cover shoot. I'll be rooting for all those guys I met down there whenever they're not facing Kentucky. Ohio State plays again, though. And there's one team I think that they're most likely going to land on. Guess who it is? They're going to be challenging Indiana. This is going to be a real test for the Hoosiers. I'm going to give them a night game because I'm sure they've won 3 games. But I'm not sure if they even want that. The last few teams that have had their night games have not come out strong. And it seems like there's not a light show or anything here at Memorial Stadium. You know, the worst part as well is I think they could have kept it competitive if they didn't finish off all those drives in the first and second quarter with field goals. It definitely was not as lopsided as that final score just looked. And just the way the Final Four is setting up, Oregon and Nebraska are going to play while Tennessee and Ohio State get their rematch. That can still change though, depending on who this wheel lands on. And you see where it's gone. It's gone to the Volunteers. This arrow doesn't matter. They're surrounded by Ohio State. We might as well just make every game remaining a night game. And guess what? I want to see the championship presentation, so the final is going to be on a neutral site. Home field advantage is not going to matter for too much longer, but this is a perfect recreation of all the Tennessee fans that said they were going to go into Ohio Stadium and take that place over last year. Are they going to be able to do it in Imperialism? That's what we're about to find out. We got Ryan Day hyping everybody up. They're running out of the tunnel. And there they go. After all of that, though, they have a 4-point lead with about a minute left. And this is not going to be a cozy, comfy win. Tennessee's been milking some of the clock as they try to get into the end zone. If they're able to pull this off, they want to make sure that there is no chance Ohio State can respond back, especially through Jeremiah Smith, because we know he's a beast. And I think they're still fine with 30 seconds left, even though they have no timeouts, especially if they caught that. You can't fault Joey Aguilar for that throw. He put it where it needed to be, but this is in bounds. And with how much time has run off the clock since then, this could be the final play. Get the snap off, Joey. Tennessee is going to lose because they didn't want to snap the ball. That's how they're handing it to Ohio State. He had one more audible he was trying to get out. When I saw they had no timeouts left, I knew they could end up getting into trouble like they did there. And one of these teams is about to become a lock for the championship game. It's Oregon. I don't think there's any way this arrow can touch anybody other than Nebraska. It's pointed up north. Nebraska's in the way, but there's a state here, which if the arrow points up this way, going to the next closest territory would be taking over this lane. I think it is North Dakota that could have just saved the Cornhuskers. But either way, come to think of it, there's stuck between Oregon and Ohio State. They have to play no matter what. In fact, now they're going to have to attack at one of these two teams on the road, and it is the Buckeyes that they're going to be facing. You know, this is setting up to be the most boring Imperialism Championship ever, so I've decided to have some fun with this game. There might not be heavy snow in college football 26, but the snow looks better than it previously did. And I thought, why not let the Patrick Mahomes clone play in the snow? Dylan Raiola's got himself a tough task here. Nebraska's only scored 3 points as we go into the final 5 minutes, but he's on a 3rd and goal where they lose a lot of yards. Yes, it is coming down hard on all of those players, but this is peak football. I wouldn't want it any other way. On 4th and goal, what are they going to do? Stadium pulse through the roof. You got to pick up 10 yards here, Dylan. You're floating up a fade, and it was almost caught. You know, that might be it for Nebraska, especially if they're letting him break a tackle. But just look at this. This is football weather. This is peak weather. It really gets me going seeing a game like that one. It will be Oregon versus Ohio State in the Imperialism Championship. Unfortunately, Nebraska just barely scored. And I'm like 99% sure both of these teams are in the top 5 championship odds this season. I'm ready to bring back the smaller schools and bring back the chaos. Like I said, I want to put this game on a neutral site. So we got our national championship game here at Hard Rock Stadium. Dan Lanning was there to run out with his team. There's the Oregon Duck. They have not had to play for a bit. And then there's Ohio State, the team that they're trying to take down. The best part about this too is we could not have asked for a closer finish. With 2 minutes left, the Ducks down by 7. Dante Moore back there, ready to take the snap. He is going to just hand this one off, and we'll see what they come out with on 3rd and 4. Simple slant across the middle there at the 30. We could very realistically be seeing overtime in this game as they go out of bounds. And let's see what they're going with. Little fake handoff. He's keeping it with the read option. He's going to stiff arm a defender, but go down. Ever since running for 91 yards on 12 carries against Ohio State, they have focused in on stopping Dante Moore, being able to pull off stuff like that. But they might be tying it up right here. 50-50 ball. That is a tough one to not go their way. Apparently, Dante Moore got hit there as well. So they put in the backup, which is going to allow them to go to the 5. You don't see that happen much. They're trusting him, though, to close this one out as they lose a couple. And you have to wonder, what type of injury is Dante dealing with at the moment? He's not out there with the national championship on the line. I guess that's why you got to focus on wear and tear and how degrading your players get. This is going to be picked off by Ohio State, and this is how Imperialism's going to end, with Jermaine Matthews Jr. making the play. What a way for Ohio State to take this national championship. Ryan Day's done it again. They won Imperialism. They won it all in real life. And maybe, just maybe, once we go to the full Imperialism, all 136 teams, we'll get a different result. This ended up being a really good time, though. I've not done an Imperialism in months. I always come back and miss these. And all I have left to say is make sure you're subscribed for my first rebuild series coming up. We're going to do episodes. We're going to have a lot of fun with it, and I'm excited for you all to see it.